Welcome, my brother. How are you
Hello, Miss
doing?
Pat. Hello, Miss Pat. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Randingo's Lifestyle. I'm doing fairly fine. And you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I know I have been waiting for a little while for us to have this discussion, but I know you was very, very busy.
Right, 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 right.
Yeah, so I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're here. Just tell us who is Randingo and what is Randingo lifestyle about.
Sure, sure. Well, you may know me as Randingo Lifestyle, but let me take you from way back when it starts. All right. So, officially or originally, my name is Michael Will Leslie Campbell. However, in Jamaica, we all have a pet name. Parents normally give us pet names. Well, my pet name is Ron. Ron
Okay.
came about. How Ron came about? My dad. My dad is Ronald. So they gave me the name Ron
All right. Okay.
because, and why I got the name Ron, because they say I look like my dad so much.
So your name after your dad.
Right, right, right.
Mm.
So let me give you the starting of my journey. So I was born here in Jamaica, right? So I was born in a marital home,
Okay.
mom and dad, right? Mom and dad. Um, I'm the last of four siblings, three
Okay.
sisters,
So
and
in
I'm the only
Jamaica, you
brother,
call you the wash belly.
right? The only son and the only brother,
Okay, so you
right?
have three siblings, three older sisters.
Right, three older sisters. I'm the youngest.
Oh, so you're fortunate.
Yeah,
You have three ladies to look after you.
all right. So, as many say, I'm the pet,
Mm.
right? Right. So, my mom and dad, namely Margaret and Ronald, they are both married, right? We all live in the same home. Um, my dad my dad is not stable because basically he's a breadwinner for the family. However, my
Mhm.
mom works. But what really happened is that when my mom got pregnant with me, she had difficulty at birth. Difficulty meaning she has been attending doctors on a regular basis and getting checkups and all of that. However, when the time came, she actually went into the hospital, um, get preparation for birth and all of that. But some way, somehow, the devil struck. She was unable to deliver me on her own,
Okay.
which, which I'm not sure if it's negligence on the doctor's side or he couldn't do better or what. However, my mom took in and for birth, for delivery. And it happened that it was hard for her to deliver me on her own. She basically couldn't, because as they would say, I was very big. I was a very big baby.
All right. Okay. Do you know how much you
Right.
weigh you weighed when you were born?
Well, I can't. I think my mom had told me, but at this moment I can't recall.
Okay.
I was a very big baby. So we know in that case, doctors will normally opt for C-section,
Yeah.
which is they would go the other way of slitting and take the baby.
Mm-hmm.
No, when my mom told the nurse to call the doctor, she said the doctor was tired.
Tired.
At
Mhm.
that moment, she said the doctor was tired. No, she was in a lot of pain and all of that. And what the nurse did was to give her an injection in her leg
Mhm.
and put her to sleep in the pain.
When she was having contraction at that time.
At that time she was basically going to labor, as I would say.
Oh.
She was in labor at that time.
So which part in Jamaica this all this happened?
This is in Westmoreland.
Okay.
Westmoreland. This is in South Lamar,
Okay,
Westmoreland.
my hospital. Okay.
Right, right. So after she gave my mom that injection to put her to sleep, early in the next day, the next morning, my mom said she only feel like early in the morning, like 5 o'clock in the morning, she feel a pat on her shoulder. That pat on her shoulder, I woke her from her sleep. It was the doctor. Doctor was so frightened. The doctor, like, so surprised. The doctor said to her, Miss Campbell, why you did not tell nurse so and so to call me? She said, no, I told nurse to call you and she said you were tired. She said, tired? And now the baby is stuck? No, no. They in their term they say it's cervix.
Yeah.
So at this point, I was stuck in the cervix. That's the passage that I should come down through. Instead of coming down, I was now stuck.
Yeah, but the birth canal.
Right.
Yeah.
So not knowing, not thinking where to turn now, and at this point, which is a very delicate point for both me and my mom.
Yeah.
Right. The doctor opted for his option was to use a forceps. Now it since lately, it's lately after I really, really realized what a forceps really is. Because the name doesn't suggest anything that it looks like. Now, a forceps, as they state, is something like a clamp,
Okay, I can
something
imagine
more
you
like,
Google it. You Google it in it to find out.
right, right. If you know a pliers,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right, it's something more like that they use to clamp. However, the reason it's used is not it should not be used in the way it was used, basically.
Okay.
Because a forceps clamp, basically when I research, it's for abortion. It would be for abortion. No, I don't know if that was his option to abort
If it was his
the birth.
intention, it was his
Right,
intention
to
to
abort the
do it.
birth.
Okay.
Right. So what he does was to use the clamp. He entered apparently and made a slight slit incision to get some space. Insert that clamp, that forceps, and grip the baby head, which is my head,
Mm-hmm.
and pull.
All right, and that's
No, at
where the
that
damage
point,
happened.
right. No, at that point, pulling. If you know how it feels pulling something that is stuck and tight. It's like he pull and let go and pull because
Mm.
the baby was so stuck. And at that point, pulling, he started like, when you're trembling, you're pulling something and you start to shake.
Yeah.
But eventually, the baby came down. And the baby came down. Based on what I heard, the baby not even cry. Normally, babies cry when they. So it's
Yes,
like,
yes.
or if they do not cry, they give them a slap on their
Mm.
shoulder to get them to cry.
Yeah,
No, I did not
as a
cry.
mother, I know. Yeah, babies always cry the moment they come out. They always be crying and
Right. No,
something. Yeah.
no, I did not cry. I did not cry. So what they did at that point, what they did at that point was to push a tube down in my lungs in order to get me
Oh,
to
to
bring
clear,
up.
maybe to clear
Right.
the
To clear my
airway or
lung.
something.
Right. Right. While in the meantime, my mom started gush blood. Blood was gushing from her. Because at that point she was under so
Much
much
stress and everything. That must be
stress
so
and
traumatized for your
aggregation,
mom.
aggregation, right? She was under so much stress there. She started to gush blood, bleeding. And I think at what point she said she started to foam. At that point, one of the nurse rushed for some sweet liquid and pour it down in her mouth. And that kind of get her to revive a bit, to
Mm.
revive a bit. No, no, my story is very touching. But in that meantime, going through that aggregation and all of that stress, they took me to, they put the babies in the incubator and all of that.
Yeah.
So I think it was the night or something like that, or the day after. My mom told me that she was in her bed and another baby mother who was also there went through the same situation, the similar situation where he used the clamp. But funny enough, I was so blessed and lucky to be alive because that mother, she came to the incubator and looked at me. And she came to my mom and said, she looked and she said, Mom, you're the lucky one. No, this story is my mom telling me.
Yeah.
Right. You're the lucky mother because the same doctor performed the same procedure on her. And in performing the same procedure, instead of the baby came down like I did, the- it was just the head came off and leave the body in the mother. So it's like
Wow.
separating that baby died.
That must be very painful. You talking now with my body went. Oh,
So,
it must be very
so
painful.
very, very painful.
That mean
Very, very
they
painful.
wasn't using that object in the right way. That
No, as I
yeah.
told you before, in my research lately, I realized that that clamp, normally they use that clamp when you have like the baby die in the mother or something, they use it to they use it to break them piece by piece and take them out.
Oh right. Okay.
Right.
Okay. That
So
makes made
normally they
sense
use
now.
it for those things, right? To remove those limbs. Now, this was very traumatizing for my mom and and for me.
Yeah, and
Now
maybe for your entire family.
yeah, so after that procedure was done and I was in the incubator and mom came around and all of that, she told me that even right right where he placed the clamp, because a baby is very delicate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So where he placed the clamp on my head, I even got some bruises because of the clamp.
Wow.
And my head was crouched in because of how tight.
Mm. But that must be very, I don't know. Maybe I'm gonna have to do a research on that. What's the name of it again?
It's a forceps
A
clamp,
forcep. Forcep.
right?
Yeah, I'm gonna do some
I
research
don't
on
know.
it.
Probably they have a different scientific name for it, but in Jamaica, that's what they call it, a forceps clamp.
That sound horrible and
Right, right,
terrifying.
right, right,
That must be
right.
very terrifying for your mom and for your entire family, your dad and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and even especially what that mother who came over and told your mom about what happened to her baby.
Right.
Oh,
And what even more was very sad is that at that point my dad wasn't in Jamaica.
so
Because
your
as I
mom, your
told you,
mom
my
was
dad was
actually on her own.
right, right. Only basically my sisters and other family members. He was away. He travels on the farm work, so he has to go away
Mm.
each year, right?
Wow. So from that's where the damage happened
Right. So
from
I
the birth.
was born 1992. Was 1992. No, after that, everything was brought me home. After a couple of days in the hospital, they brought me home. Everything was going fine and all of that. Went back to the doctor, and everything was gradually going. Only thing they told my mom was not to use any destroy or anything around me. Now, bear in mind, I was born a healthy child, apart from procedure that he performed on me. While growing, now I attend basic school very early. I started basic school at about 2 years old. At a small basic school, a lady used to keep a small basic school in my area.
Okay.
So at home, I was a very intrigued child. I started out very early, learning very early, very quick.
And
And
this
so my mom,
this is all in
very
in,
quick.
in Sav.
No, because this was not in Sab. I was born at the hospital in Sab, but I was living in Hanover because my mom lived in Hanover.
All right. Okay. Okay. So this is okay.
Right. So
Hanover.
my mom was living in a small community in Hanover called Cessna. Right. So in my community, there was this lady who they have a church. They used to have this church. She I think she used to pastor at that church, or she was some deacon in that church or something. So she used to on weekdays she used to keep school. We call it basic school. So she would gather the kids from the community, different kids from the community, and we would gather there, and she would teach us from ABC to 1, 2, 3.
Mm. So your school life starts very early. Started very,
Very
very
early,
early.
very early. So
Mm.
I was exposed to education at a very early stage.
That's good. That's
Right,
good. That's good stuff.
right. So after leaving, after growing and growing, um, my mom really at that point now I realized my head. I have as a young child, I didn't have a normal head as any other child. I had a huge head. Had a huge head. Not knowing the reason, but I had a huge head. And but everything else was okay. Everything was okay. It was when everything really starts was when I left the school in my community and I started a prime. Now I started a basic and primary schools. My mom started enrolled me into a basic and primary school. So basically, it's like two basic school I went to.
Okay, and
But
where
this
was this?
school that I'm
In
this
Setnock?
this now this school now was back in Westmoreland. So I had to. My mom would take me on the taxi to school. Now at that school they call it infant and primary.
Okay.
Right. So my mom would dress me every morning and she would pack my lunch kit and I would head off to school. Whether she takes me or she would put me in a taxi and said, left him at school for me. Right? When my dad came home, he he would also take me to school. If mom don't take me to school, he would take me to school. Now as a child, I was very active.
Just like
Yeah,
myself,
play and
growing up in
everything.
Jamaica, we all active as children,
Right,
climbing
right, right,
trees, all sort.
right. So and I was a very bright child, as they would say, very bright child. Everyone was intrigued with me as a child because then what helps to boost me and for them to intrigue with me was that I'm I was already introduced to the world of education coming from a basic school before.
All
I
right.
was already introduced to the world of education. So no, I was like a bit ahead of the other kids.
Yeah, children your age was a bit ahead of them. Yeah, and yeah, I
Right,
understand that.
right. I was a bit ahead of those kids.
So what I
But
want to
going
ask you,
through
Ron, sorry to cut in, but what I want to ask you, going to school, like now you're into a bigger school, infant and primary. Did you ever get bullied for your disability?
very much, very much. No, I'm gonna get to that because now starting this school, as I told you, now in infant and all of that, the first bullying starts at my head, this huge head, this small body and this huge head. Because my head was basically two times my body.
Mm. And the children,
Right. So
they
that's
don't
where bullying
know
starts
the
now.
condition, but they just, and
Right.
children, the
And
children, they
teasing.
can be cruel.
Right. Right. And teasing and all of that. No, thinking of everything is okay and I'm ready to go on with life, not knowing what lies ahead of me. I at about grade three, grade four, I realized I start my spine really start to take a different turn, a different curve. Every now and again, I would develop this back pain, every now and again. But that didn't deter me. I was still going to school and trying to be a part of my younger world,
Yeah.
right? Fast forward to grade four, grade five, I realized it was getting worse. No, I came home sometimes and I tell you, I faced some terrible back pains, terrible back pains. and and what comes behind it, my lower limbs start to get weak. My
Okay.
lower limbs start to get weak.
You went through a lot then, Ron. You went through a lot.
Yeah, meaning as you know, normally you walk upright. I was now crouching to the ground, crouching to the ground. I could hardly lift my feet. So as a young child, starting from there, in a month, I would change like 4 or 5 shoes
So,
because my shoes, because of how I started to walk. My shoes, they would decay very fast. They would go very fast.
so sorry. So
I was
during this time, were you in a wheelchair or anything like that?
no, no,
And not a walker or
no,
anything?
no, just walking normally.
But you
No,
were but you were
I was
crouching
now
down,
crouching to the ground
downwards.
more and more. Right, crouching to the ground more and more. It continued until I had was to quit school. Unfortunately, I came home and day and night I would have terrible back pains.
But
Terrible
at
back
this time,
pains.
you're
I
at
could
home,
not
not
walk.
going to school, just at home and in agony with
Right,
them.
right. No, I had to quit school because I was unable to balance on my own. I was very close to the ground. I would fall very often and all of that. My spine was now curving, curving more and more, curving more and more, more and more. Now my family members getting very curious at what's happening. They up to took me back to the doctor that did my delivery. When we went back to him, he was like it's not the forceps. Something else is wrong with me because it's not nothing that he does that is affecting me. That is really affecting me. So it must be something else.
So how old were you at this point?
At this point, I was about 10, 11,
Okay.
10, 11.
But
I
for a
went back.
10-year-old child to go through all of that when you should be like enjoying your childhood, it must be very, very hard.
Right. No, it turns out that every week or every other week or how much time for the month, I would have to be back and forth from the doctor, trying to find out what's the matter, what's causing this pain, and what's causing this unease with my body. They send me to do tests, send me to do x-rays, and unfortunately, it was such a frightening disaster. When I did the x-rays and the x-rays came back, only to find out that my spine was severely curved, severely damaged. My spine was now like an S, or as in Jamaica would say, like the twist of a coconut tree.
Mm.
Being astonished and surprised at this now, where do we turn? The doctor said is not what
He's
he
not
did.
specialized in that.
Right. No, they offer us they give us an option to visit another hospital which is not close to us but is in the country same way. It's on the other end of the island. That's Children Hospital. That's in Kingston. No, I'm living country. I'm living in the country area, so they are now sending us to another hospital, which is in the city.
Even Kingston from Hanover to Kingston, it's a long way in it.
Right. It's like 2, 3 hours, almost 4 hours from country to go Kingston. Now we have to take the minibus, nothing having any transportation of our own. Mom and I now have to board the bus, its transportation, and head to Kingston.
So were you able to sit from the country from Hanover to Kingston, like all that about 4 hours journey? Were you able to sit all that
No, no,
length of time?
no, no, not comfortably. Not comfortably. Because at this point now, going to Kingston now is even more stressing on my mouth. I'm more uncomfortable because at this point I couldn't hardly walk. So lifting was a part of the journey now. So she would have to lift me, a 10-year-old. Imagine a 10-year-old, the size of a 10-year-old child. And my mom have to lift me on her back through the streets. Wasn't a pretty game. So I would walk to a certain dimension. Then I would get tired. So she would have to lift me.
I'm just listening to your story, and I just can't tell you how I'm feeling at this moment. Because it, I'm just thinking back then with your mom, how difficult it must have been for her, and even for you as well, what you were going through.
Right. So we remember now we are living in the country. We don't have we don't have another we to find we'd have to find now a place to stay in Kingston in order to visit doctor. Because it's not a same day visit, same day back home, because Kingston is not a stone throw away.
Yeah. And I guess you
But
must have to
luckily,
get there very early if you have like a 10 o'clock appointment. You'd have to leave country very early
right,
to get to Kingston for 10
right,
o'clock.
right. But luckily,
Wow.
we have other family members living in Kingston.
Okay, so it makes it a bit easier.
Right. So we'd have to leave out from the day before and head and stay with other family members in Kingston and to go over the next morning to see doctor. Now, that happened for quite a few times, back and forth from Kingston for a while,
Yeah.
because doctors have to make checks and do different tests and different x-rays. Now it was getting more serious and serious because I was getting more older. And the older I get, the more difficult it
Mm,
would be. Right. Uh, In shortly after they decided that they would do a surgery, they explained to us that the spine is severely curved. So they would have to do a surgery. And that surgery, what they would do would try to straighten the spine at a certain dimension, not full, but a certain dimension, and to install what's called a rod, a pin,
mhm.
rather, to hold the spine in place. Because the spine keeps curving, curving, and curving more and more. So they would install a pin to keep the spine in place and prevent it from curving more and more. Now, hearing that was a bit of relief, brings a bit of relief, and was a bit of anxiety. Yes, at this point we may get somewhere. But unfortunately, the wrong news came. because they actually get me in, they decide to do the surgery. No, no. When they decide to do the surgery, the doctor. We went in one morning,
Yeah.
and the doctor was like, "This surgery is gonna cost you an arm and a leg, though. We're gonna do the surgery, but it's gonna cost an arm and a leg." One of his first questions was that if I had won the lottery. Now this is in Jamaica. If I had won the lottery, now thinking about winning the lottery, that's big bucks,
They're talking
big
money.
bucks,
They're talking real money.
right? Real money. But not even the money was such a fear, but eager to get something done to me at that point was more important. They actually book a date now, call me in, admit me into the hospital. They book a date to do the surgery. I was now in the hospital waiting on my date.
Things looking more positive now.
Yes, waiting on the date. And when I was waiting on the date, only to hear closer to the date of the surgery, closer to the date of the surgery, the doctor came by and said that no, the doctor that I've been visiting,
Yeah.
track back, the doctor I've been visiting he's not the one that would be doing the surgery. He's a doctor from another hospital, which is now I'm attending Children's Hospital. No, there's another hospital, University, which more adult, they would deal with more adult cases for the adults. No, this doctor said he would be the one fit to do the surgery. So they would now team up and do the surgery. Now, this doctor at this point now telling us that that doctor that's supposed to do the surgery, that was to come from University Hospital, has to go to court. So that
Hmm.
now was a very devastating news.
Have to go to court.
Has to go to court. For what reason? It's yet to know. Now that was a very devastating news. Now we are back at square one. At this point, when the case is getting more serious and serious, we are back at stage one. Now, this cousin that I have, that we stayed with in Kingston, this family member that we stayed with in Kingston, it got so he got so irritable
Annoyed with the situation.
and so frustrating with
Yeah.
the situation
I
because
can just imagine.
been visiting for so long. No, if you cannot do the thing, tell the family, please, we cannot manage the case. Right. Before that, there was a family member living abroad. There was another family member living abroad that knew of my case and was very earnest to get help for me and to see me get through this. He went ahead. This was now in Canada.
Yeah.
He was in Canada. He went ahead and said, there's a hospital over here that does a great job at those cases. This hospital is sick kids in Toronto, Canada. Now he said he would try to get me into sick kids. Now he said to send over, we had to send over papers and all the necessary documents to sick kids in order for sick kids to analyze the case and to make preparation to do this. Now, as we know in Jamaica, I don't know if it's negligence or what or but when sick kids send for my documents, now we have to go back to these doctors in order to get those documents for
You have to
them
go
to
back.
send off.
So I have to go back to Kingston.
Yeah, we have to go back to Kingston. We have to go back to Savlamar in Westmoreland
Mm-hmm.
to get all the papers from birth, what's happening from birth, come up, in order to send them to Canada,
To Canada.
to sick kids. No, that was a whole lot of run around again. Now, after this run around, sick kids get back to us and told us that they only do surgeries at a certain age. And that age cutoff point was 12 years.
And how old were you at
That
that
cutoff
point?
point was 12 years old. Now I was heading closer to now in 11, 10, 11, going to 12 years old. Now, because of this whole backlog and such a run around to get these papers, when we finally, we didn't even get all the papers as yet. I was now over 12 years old. Time flies by so fast.
Some say take you
I was now,
maybe over a year to get those papers together.
right, or more than a year to get them all sorted out and get them together to send them there. No, sick kids, the good thing about sick kids, they gave us another option. Sick kids say, all right, we no longer can do the surgery, but here's another option. There's another hospital which is in the same country, but on the further end. Now, sick kids is in Toronto, Canada. Now, the option was to try Shriners, which is on the other end of Canada, which is Montreal.
You went through a
No,
lot, Randingo. You went
right,
through a lot at
right,
such a young age.
right,
But you know what? God have great plans for you. Great,
sure,
great plans.
sure. Because that's the other point of my story. I grew up into a Christian home. So my family was a praying family. My mom would get up day and day, she would cry and she would pray for some breakthrough to come through. Now, at this point, my dad, who travels on a yearly basis to Canada and farmer, and to his surprise, 1 year in the same period, one of his employer took a vacation to Jamaica without his knowledge. It was like one Sunday, we were at home and he just got this call. That was one of his employer calling him to tell him that, hey, I'm in Jamaica and I'm coming to see you. Not knowing that he has a sick child. Because my dad is the type of person, no matter what he's going through, he doesn't share it with a lot
A lot.
of people. That's him.
He keep everything to himself.
Right. He
So
keeps everything to
at this
himself.
point, he was in Jamaica, and is it his co-worker
Right.
came
He
to
came
see
home
him?
that year. He came home that year, but he didn't know that that employer was coming to Jamaica on vacation. So it was a surprise call to say that, hey, I'm in Jamaica. I'm coming to see you. No, that same day, that the next day, he came by pretty early in the morning. So happy to see us, so intrigued to meet the family of Ronald Campbell. But in the midst, it was a bittersweet vacation for him. It was a surprise for him because at this point now he's gonna meeting me for the first time and learn at this point that Ronald has a sick child.
Mm. So he was the one help you to get to Canada.
So fast forward now, after his vacation ended, he went back up, spoke to his other colleagues, and from there they up to help the family. They said, no, we have to butt in and we have to start helping. We are gonna now take it up from here and try to help this family and to see something out of this.
We're gonna have to do part two of this conversation, man. It's yeah, definitely gonna have to
Sure,
do part two of this conversation because yeah, you have an interesting life, but a very hard one. A very hard
sure.
one.
Yeah, it's been a rough road.
Yeah. I watch your videos and I realize that your mom has passed away.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
My mom
my
passed.
condolence to you and your family.
Thank you.
Um
Thank
so
you. Thank you.
so you did went to Canada and did you get to do the operation?
Yes, I got to do the operation. But before that, after contacting Shriners in Montreal, Shriners said we should send up X-rays for them to see what really
What's going
what
on?
really is the case.
Yeah.
Right. Now I went and I did 15 pieces of X-ray here in Jamaica. And I FedEx them to Shriners. And the call was, hey, none out of the 15 pieces of X-ray, they couldn't read them.
So they didn't done properly then. They weren't clear. The images
Not
wasn't
sure if they
clear.
didn't done properly or based on their probably their intrigue, technology and what, they couldn't read them. Or their advanced study, they could not read them.
Yeah, I think
They said,
the
look,
images were they wasn't clear enough for them to read.
no. So the option was to, all right, let's get him in the country. Let's get him here before we can decide what we can do. Now, at that point now, we have to start looking after papers to get to Canada. Start looking fast forward. Finally reach Canada in 2006. I was now like a baby from my mom. I remember the first morning heading out to go to the hospital. We had to stay. We had when we went to Canada, we stayed with a cousin of ours that was living in Canada. Heading into this country for the first time, not knowing where we're going, what we're gonna entail, what we're gonna acquire, anything, what we're gonna meet, nothing. All we hear was to bring warm clothes, warm clothes. Now, Miss Pat, I went in, we went up, and when we went up, it was I actually got lift from the plane to the car, from the car. Now, when we reached home, that was the fascination because we had to go up now 3 stories. It was three, no, sorry, 2 stories. Because my cousin was now living on a second floor of an apartment building.
Wow.
Now there was a gentleman, the gentleman that came for us at the airport had now to lift me, not only lift me, but 2 times my weight. Because they had now to pad me in some thick jacket because it was cold,
Very
of
cold.
course.
You can just
See,
imagine.
for the first time experiencing that cold weather coming from Jamaica, all you hear is paddle, keep warm. You're coming from a hot country. Yeah. So we went in, and the next morning, same paddle. My mom have to lift me. Oh, may her soul rest in peace. Love your mom. She had to lift me. Now, first time taking a bus in Canada, because the hospital was quite a few chains from where we live. So we had to take the bus. Then we had to take what they call metro. Now, metro was a whole new ideal thing for me.
So when you now you're in Canada, did you have a
Right.
wheelchair?
No, for the first morning. No, remember, I'm just coming to the country, not having anything. Remember, I didn't have anything in Jamaica. So I'm not traveling with any form of aid or any.
Yes.
Yes, now at the hospital. Yes, a very warm welcome. Reaching the hospital now, aiming to meet the doctors and to get their opinions and all of that. No, they were so intrigued to see me and very, very wanting to find out my story and what they could do to help. Now, when I went there, the doctors were like looking at me like, "Hey, who is this guy?" So they they took me into a room now. Now the doctor started questioning me now. What's the whole journey and how my survival went?
Okay. Question you or question your mom?
Both of us,
Okay.
both of us. So we introduced ourselves. He introduced himself, and he said he heard of the story and he saw X-rays and all of that. So we started telling him then and there what happened and how everything started. But they said no. For them to do anything, the first thing they would have to do was send me to do an MRI.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm going to do an MRI for the first time. And based on the MRI, is a scan of the entire body to see what's been taking place
Yeah.
inside the body. Yes, and they gave me a date and I went and did the MRI. And the results came back very shocking. He was very, very, very surprised to see the result and what entails in the result. When I went back there for the to hear the result, he was like, he looked at me from head to foot and he was like, my God, how are you coping? How do you cope living like this? because based on this, based on what he has seen from the result, is that I should be. He's so astonished to see that I'm still very, very movable at a point, because he said based on the damage that he found within that within that is I should be totally blind, totally deaf, basically being a menace to the world, not being a vegetable, not having much capability. Spine was severely curved, he said, very curved. Then not only curved, but what they found out was that water was in my head. Fluid was also in the brain, which would cause my head to be swollen like that.
That's why it was like that when you go into primary school. When they say it was you
Right.
had a
No, that's the
huge head.
first time. No, that's the first time I'm hearing this. First time I'm hearing this. That water was in my brain, right? And not only that, the water not only was in my brain, water was sitting on the column wall of my spine, which was very, very dangerous.
So maybe that's what caused it to be carving that
Right.
at
So
that rapid speed
that was what
as
that
well.
was a part of what helping my spine to curve more and more. And the curvature with the curvature of my spine, it keeps locking off every sensation and
Mhm.
every down to my lower limbs.
That's why your legs were so weak as well. When they say you couldn't walk, your mom
Right.
have to be lifting you.
So
Oh,
everything
wow.
from my waist go down, everything was basically locking off.
Well,
My
you
lungs,
went through a lot.
my lungs was now in a terrible situation because my spine was now my spine was now closing in on my lungs. Was now
You
closing.
went through a lot.
Everything from my lower limb was pulled up. Every vein, everything was pulled up from my lower limbs.
Wow. That's agony. This I don't know how your mom. Oh God. Oh, that's a
Everything
lot
was
you went
pulled
through,
up.
and a lot your mom went through, and at such a young
Yeah,
age.
right,
Wow. But
right,
as I
right.
said, we will have to do part two of this, and I'm so intrigued and so happy that you uh, managed to have this discussion with you. You get to tell us your story,
Sure,
and I know this.
sure.
There are many people out there have similar disability like yours, and you know how
Yeah,
passionate I
yeah,
am
yeah.
about disability. You know, I work with
Right,
disabled
right,
children, and I'm
right,
very passionate about
right.
disability.
Yeah.
Um,
At first, I was a bit um I used to be a bit restricted, and I used to restrict myself and kind of isolate myself from the wider world, because living like this, and especially in Jamaica, not many people take this very nice.
yeah, I can imagine that. I can imagine that, and I know if you walk on the road, they turn their heads and they ask
Yeah, and
questions
and
or
and, and
something. But you
I
know what?
face many been facing many what we call criticism, and very much unkind words and
Yeah.
stigmatization
Yeah, yeah,
from both
I
young
can
and old.
imagine. Yeah, But yeah,
both
as
young and
we're gonna
old.
do part two so we can discuss this more. But I'm so happy and thank you so much. Thank you so much to come on my channel.
Sure, sure,
Let's
sure,
Talk TV and tell us your
sure,
story.
sure. It's
I
been
know
my pleasure.
a lot
It's
of
been my
people will
pleasure.
listen to your story and
Right, right,
want to even listen to part two. So I'm looking forward
right,
to
right,
do part two with you. It's
right.
a very, very
I don't want to
interesting
take it
story.
wider into
So
the world because many people does not know my story. I want to take it further,
yeah,
letting people
yes.
know about my
Yeah,
story
and
and
from your story, a lot of
right,
people who may feel who may be feeling like how you were feeling back then, isolated, and maybe don't want to come out
right,
because they feel a bit
right,
embarrassed.
right,
Yeah,
right, right,
you can
right,
give them a strength to see, well,
right, right,
yeah, there are people like them out there,
right,
there are people
right.
out there still love you, and you have to live your life.
Sure,
And no, look, you're on
sure,
YouTube now. You're on YouTube,
sure, sure,
no,
sure.
yeah.
Right,
So
right, right,
yes,
right.
and a lot of
And
people gonna listen to your story.
if I may say, from nothing to something.
Yes, yes,
Right,
definitely so. And as
right,
I said,
right.
God have a lot for you in store. God have a lot for you in store.
Sure,
So thank you
sure,
very much for
sure.
telling us your story, and we look forward
It was
for
a pleasure
part
meeting
two.
you.
And
Sure,
we will talk. Yes, we will talk. So thank you so much to come
sure,
on to
sure,
Let's
sure.
Talk TV. And
Yeah, man.
your channel again is Randingo Lifestyle.
Randingo's lifestyle.
Randingo's
Randingo's
Lifestyle.
lifestyle.
Yes, just shout
Yes,
out the
like,
channel.
share, and subscribe. Right.
Right, shout out the channel so
Sure,
one can come
sure,
over and subscribe to your channel. And
sure, sure.
yes, so thank you so much. Thank you so much for this
Right, right.
discussion.
And if there's
And
anyone out there who want to have another interview with me, no problem. I'm here to tell the world of my story.
thank you so much. Thank
Sure,
you. So we look
sure,
forward for part two, yeah? So take care of
sure.
yourself. Take care of
You
yourself.
too.
Yes,
Right.
yes,
Until
yes.
then.
All right then. Okay.